From KPRC2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
Good morning. Welcome to my final Houston Newsmakers ahead of my retirement next week. What better guest to end this run than with Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner, who's also finishing his 8 years as mayor of the city of Houston. Mayor Turner, it was January of 2016 when you took office.
8 years ago.
Talk about what you remember during that time about your anticipation of getting into this job that you really had wanted for so many years.
You know, January 2016, as I started, it seemed like it was going to be a long 8 years. In fact, I remember when I, after I got sworn in, came over to City Hall, was sitting at the desk. I said, you know, 8 long years in front of me.
So you were already looking past any re-election.
I just said 8 8 long years. And then I quickly reset and I said, let's take it one day at a time, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. In fact, I told my executive staff, don't look at it as 2 4-year terms. The people have given us 1 year. Let's do as much as we can in this 1 year. And then we'll take the next year and then the next. But 1 year. And that's the way I looked at it. Interestingly, when we cut the ribbon, and in my swearing in, I talked about Ellington Airport, Ellington Field, and the spaceport when I got sworn in, about how we were going to focus on that. 8 years later, in December, we cut the ribbon on Axiom at Ellington Airport. And so how things kind of gone from 8 years, January 2016, looking forward, and then December 7th, 2023, looking back. But yeah, I just said when I came in, a daunting task, so much to do, but we have a long period of time in which to do it.
When you look back, what do you wish you would have known then that might have helped you?
That we were going to have 7 federally declared disasters.
Okay.
You know, because if I had known that the city was going, and in addition to all of the core services, you know, police, fire, solid waste, things of that nature. In addition to all of that, balancing the budgets, 7 federally declared disasters on top of that. Not counting COVID, maybe it just would have provided that added sort of thought process, so to speak. And then, but you know, 4 months in, I should have known, 4 months in, we had the tax day flood in April of 2016. That was 4 months in, you know. But the number one issue from the financial end was pension reform. I'll never forget 2015. In 2015, in the campaign, that was the number one issue. Whoever becomes mayor must address the unfunded pension liabilities that are out of control and crowding out everything else. And then I'll never forget in 2015, the thought was, we need a business person, not a politician. I'll never forget that.
So after you got in and you began work on those kinds of things, how would you evaluate that process and the way that the pension issue was resolved? You know,
after I got in February, I was sworn in January, the very next month, I asked all of the heads of the 3 unions, police, fire, and municipal workers, to come to City Hall and sit down with me. They told me it was the first time that all 3 of them were asked to come in at one time to visit with the mayor on pension liabilities. So I sat down with them and said, look, Either we figure this out or somebody else is going to figure it out for us. And we may not like the way they choose to do it. So we sat down and I said, look, can we agree that we have an unfunded pension problem? They all said yes. Can we agree that it needs to get fixed? Everybody said yes. And I pretty much said that's it for this meeting. And we didn't go any further. Called them back a few weeks later, and I said, look, so now that we've agreed that we need to fix it, we have a problem, we need to fix it, these are the three things that I need. I need us to reduce the unfunded liabilities, which at that time was $8.2 billion going up. We need to cut that unfunded liability by 1/3. Secondly, we need to reduce the annual cost so that it's going down. And third, I need a permanent fix. That's what the city needs. And what I said to them, you know your individual groups better than I do. Do we want to do a defined contribution? They said, hell no. So I wrote on the chart, defined contribution and put X. Defined benefit, and I said if we're going to do the defined benefit, then that means we have to change the plan design in each one of the groups. They said yes, and I told them that's going to be hard, but they agreed to it, and that's how the process started. Some 8 months later, in the same year, we all got back together. They brought me their proposed changes. Collectively, they reduced the unfunded liabilities by 1/3. And collectively, the annual costs were reduced. And it was a permanent fix. And so we took that plan, presented it to City Council. It was approved 16-1. The business community, Great Houston Partnership and others, joined in. We took it to Austin, and the Republican Senate and Republican House and the Republican governor signed off on the plan. And then later, the voters approved it by 75%. And today, when you look back, initially in 2016, unfunded liability is $8.2 billion and going up. Today, the unfunded liability is $2.2 billion and going down.
Mm-hmm. So, and you look back on the things that, on your 8 years, I know as we get closer to the end of your tenure, that you have to look back on those things that you think of as the most proud moments. And I want to ask that and from the standpoint of there's challenges, they could talk about the biggest challenges, but also talk about your biggest accomplishments. What would you, number one, biggest challenge, and what number two, biggest accomplishment?
Well, it depends on which category you're looking at, because on the financial end, getting on top of the unfunded pension liabilities was the number one financial issue. Okay, that was number one. And we got on top of that, and the proof now is that it's substantially reduced. But from a financial point of view, that was number one. In terms of the challenges, I guess you could include pensions in that, but when you face 7 federally declared disasters, and when you couple with social civil unrest, remember the murder of George Floyd, cities across the country were facing massive demonstrations, looting, rioting, burning, curfews. City of Houston I never had to impose a curfew. We didn't have any looting or rioting or burning. But 7 federally declared disasters, along with social civil unrest, coupled with COVID for 2 years, and in some sense we're still facing that. Those were the major challenges. And if you ask me, in addition to pensions, successes is navigating and managing those 7 federally declared disasters, along with COVID and along with the social civil unrest, where the city has come through them. We don't talk about it much, as I listen to, for example, the mayoral debates. People kind of put those 7 federally declared disasters to the side. But navigating through that, no other mayor has faced those number of storms, disasters, the social civil unrest, COVID. Because the last time we faced a global pandemic was in 2017, 2018, 2019, okay? Oh no, when I was saying 20, it was like
19.
yeah, 19, 17, 18, and 19. 100 years ago. But for the city of Houston, the fourth largest city in the country, to navigate through those storms and still be resilient and still be globally competitive with other cities around the globe speaks volumes about Houston and who we are as a community and as a city. So they represented, I guess you could say, the city's greatest challenges during my term, but they represent Houston, the city's greatest successes during my term. Mm-hmm. Because when you take those type of punches and you're still standing and you're still competitive and you're still moving forward, that speaks to the resilience of who we are. And so I go around the city, go around the country, go around the globe, and I say hashtag, Houston proud.